Benjamin can have love for the truckie. Beautiful minds, but we love getting ugly. Risk takers with a clover, man, we love getting lucky. You run, we chase fire, I love when it ducks me. Tones go off, house watch, read the address out. 1075, get up off the magic couch. 500 gallons prepared for the baddest drought. Who else you want on the way when disaster's out? Can't even get a little bit rattled when you enter with exit apparel. Mayday, member down, they'll drag you. You won't get this from every Tom, Dick, and Harold, but here's a view from the top floor with Mickey Farrell.
Hey, welcome back, guys, to another episode of A View from the Top Floor. Today's guest is Mike Smith, 48 Engine. Once again, we're doing a part 2 of the engine company. You know, we got done recording the first episode with Mike, and we realized that the one question that he asked me, which prompted me ultimately to have him on the show, was a question we didn't really cover in the conversation. So we figured we'd do it again and cover a couple key points that I think are important. So the question asked was, what position on the fireground that needs to be performed, and when you're doing it, you have to be good at it. So we dive into that, we talk about that, and when he originally asked me that, I kind of misunderstood the question, and I started talking about different positions in the sense of stress level and how unique challenges and certain stressors that come with those positions. So we dive into that as well, company integrity, and again, Mike Smith, incredibly passionate guy about the fire service, great dude, engine company to the core. So check out episode 35, the engine company. That's the first episode I did with Mike. And then check out this one if you haven't already checked out the first one, all right? So again, 48 Engine, Mike Smith, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy it. Here we are. We're back. Mike Smith, 48 Engine, second episode. You know, we got done recording and we just continued to hang out and talk a bit, and we realized there's something which started this whole idea of us getting together and talking was a question you threw out at me, and we talked about it. I said, well, why don't you come on the show and talk, and let's do that.
Correct.
So, what was the question that was posed?
The question I asked you originally was, what position do you feel on the fireground that needs to be performed, and when you're doing it, you're good at it? And you misread my question, and you thought I said stressful.
Stressful, yeah. So good and stress, two difference, right?
Right. And your response was first due engine chauffeur.
First due engine chauffeur, the most stressful, and shortly behind that, the first due battalion chief, or the
Sure.
first due chief of department, whoever your department is, that first commanding IC.
Sure.
And there's the reason why.
Okay.
Obviously, engine chauffeur, it's all on you. We just talked about
Sure.
this, right? So it's all about getting water.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be good at that to get the water to,
Sure.
obviously, for ultimate checkmate and success on the fireground. But that chief position, I think, that gets overlooked many times. It's very hard for a chief to stand in the street and realize he has no control of actually physically doing the job,
Sure.
but have to rely on his men to do it, and how stressful that can be. So those are the two most stressful positions: engine company chauffeur and the first due chief. I think
Okay.
are the two most stressful.
Right.
Your question was, though,
Right, but we could go along with, we could stay with the stress. Do you want to
Okay.
stay with the stress?
no, I mean, what was the original question, though?
What position and be good at it?
All of them.
All of them?
I think you're good at all your positions.
Right, but what's the hardest one to be good at?
I think it's depending on where you work, your culture of your department. For us, I think the OV is a pretty hard position to master
Okay.
because there's so much gray area. Our books tell
Sure.
us one thing. You read the books, you study the books, you understand how to get into position, but there's so many variables with the OV that I think that if you're not fully committed to the game, you struggle with.
Sure.
I think that's probably the hardest to be great at.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, my response to you on that question was the teamwork capability of stretching and operating a hose line is extremely difficult to be good at.
And this goes back to our last episode about company integrity, how important that was.
Correct. And the communication aspect We talked about manpower. You know, I can only speak for where I come from and what I know. We're a 5-man engine. That's not including the boss, the officer. You know, the officer is not involved in the stretch, so that leaves the chauffeur, nozzle backup door, and the control man. People will say, you know, well, you have 5 guys. How is that hard? You know, and my response to that would be, you know, how often are 5 guys at that moment in time on the same page? Just look at the meal, for example. We go to shop for a meal. What?
So, but I think,
okay,
yeah.
it's very hard, you know?
And I think I always revert back to this, that if you listen to some other episodes in the past, or if you see my lecture, I speak about the meal.
Right.
And how if that's the only thing you do for that tour that's proactive is to cook a meal for each other.
Right.
For the brotherhood.
Right.
The culture.
Sure.
It's a drill because you understand where you fit in.
Right.
There's that camaraderie, of course, but that understanding of like chopping peppers. You walk in, you pick up the onion. You're not trying to take the peppers from me. That's already getting done. You feel that. You start chopping peppers. Onions are good. Peppers are good. I walk in, peppers, onions. Let me get the sausage. Boom, boom. Tones go off. Do out the door we go for a fire. That company integrity was already crafted during the meal, right?
Sure.
So I think that alone, if you do one drill a day, is to make the meal.
Okay.
But we don't look at that.
Right.
We had a busy night. We got beat up. You know, let's order pizza. Well, I know when someone's ordering a pizza in a firehouse, and this isn't across the board. This is
Right.
a broad stroke statement, but
Sure.
it's a place I know that when the tones go off, maybe I got to really watch what they're doing as far as company integrity, getting that line of position. Because
Sure.
if they can't handle making a meal together because they're not getting along, how are they going to get a line of position?
Right.
You know, at a working fire.
Right.
So.
Right.
But that's a great point, though. That stress level of stretching.
Sure. But now, if you want to take that one step further, as far as stress level, where you said engine chauffeur, first do engine chauffeur, correct?
Yeah.
Now, I could touch on that because I'm an engine chauffeur and I've had a handful of first do jobs, and yes, that job is very stressful. Okay. Now, going off of how we ended our first episode, and I said, know why you're doing what you're doing, and it's because of you and him and him and him and him. Is the nozzle position. The nozzle position carries a lot of weight, and the way I look at it is, when you're a chauffeur, every aspect of being a chauffeur can be taught to you. You want to learn your area, get in the seat, drive around. You want to know where your hydrants are? We now have that iPad, which is an awesome tool. The hydrants are on that. The oldest scenarios that you might encounter as a chauffeur, you know, dropping booster, hooking up to a hydrant, supplying a tower ladder, supplying a line, supplying another engine, can be taught to you, right? That's stuff that's passed down from the next guy to the next guy and the next guy. And the guys who have taught me how to be a chauffeur, they do it and it looks like it's a walk in the park for them.
You can get water out of a rock, most of them.
100%. They're very good at what they do. Now, my question to you is, can you teach grit? Can you teach mental toughness?
No, and
can you teach testicular fortitude?
You can't teach any of this.
So,
however, though, what you also cannot teach, and I know where you're going with this, the nozzle is grit. When you have the knob, 48 engine, you better have a sense of grit about you, because that's who you represent. That's that company. 40 engine has always been grit. Am I right?
Correct, but I'm not only representing my company. Like I said, you hear that expression, what you see here, what you do here, what you hear here will stay within these 4 walls.
Yeah.
Then there's truth to that. But what your actions will extend further than those 4 walls. Like you're married with kids, 95% of the guys I work with, married, kids, fiancés, girlfriends, my actions implement their families.
Yeah.
So like we said before, an aggressive truck and an aggressive engine go hand in hand.
Oh yeah. That's the rhythm of fire.
It goes hand in hand. So in order to make the back bedroom, you know, because there's people trapped, that nozzleman has to make that push.
But let's back it up.
Sure.
To the MPO, right? The
Sure.
chauffeur. You can teach all these things. You can teach hydraulics. The senior men can teach you how to position the rig on a hydrant, soft suction versus the front roll. What's it called?
The 35 banana? That's a
whatever.
no. That's out.
Yeah, it's out.
That's out, man.
So what I'm getting at, the fact that I don't know it,
Right,
it tells
right.
you we don't really use it.
Right.
But
Sure.
like, that comes from a good chauffeur, like showing the next guy all these things. But you can't teach stress.
Right.
So that's why it makes it so stressful, is because the entire job, I don't care how gritty the nozzleman is, if that pump operator can't get water, doesn't matter how gritty it is.
Sure.
So I think that's why the MPO or the chauffeur is the most stressful position.
Right. And like I said, I agree with it being stressful.
I've never been an MPO.
Right.
I'm just saying.
I'm agreeing. But
And I am in awe of all these guys.
Right.
Like, that's their sole purpose on the fire ground, is to find water.
Right.
And I rely on these guys with never thinking twice about it.
Sure.
You know?
But when they do it over and over and over again to where the point where they're not even batting an eye or dropping a bead of sweat, that's talent, and that's when you know, man, that guy is good at what he does.
Yeah.
You know, and to even go further to where you brought up, move the line, back the line out. You know, when you're backing the line out, who's the last guy out?
Yeah.
That guy, or and I've been in the situations where they're backing the line out, but they're doing an emergency roll call. Well, guess what, man? This situation we're in sucks, but we can't leave until every guy's accounted for.
Yeah.
You can't. That's not in a textbook. You're not going to get that from a lecture, man. That comes down to that individual, like loving the guy next to him and doing everything he possibly can to make sure he gets home. That's stress.
Well, let's take it one step further.
Sure.
It's also, you have to have that stress level on the nozzle position and the first two engine officer, like I said last episode, like
Sure.
you're the general.
Yeah.
Knowing the brothers are above.
Yeah.
You're not going,
You're-
even if we're quote unquote, the chief says back the line, everyone out of the building, and you know for a fact the secondary truck is operating the floor above. You know what? Give me charges. I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Only place I'm going is the burn center, knowing there's brothers not getting out on the floor above, because they might be cut off.
Right.
They may this, they may that, whatever it may be. But until I'm confirmed that the secondary truck is off the floor above,
Right.
then we back the line out.
Right.
Not till then. It's very, very important we understand that. And I think that chiefs are, nothing against chiefs. Like I said, I think it's the most high stress job next to the MPO. Those
Sure.
two are hand in hand. I think they have to realize though how long it takes to do things on the fire ground sometimes.
Oh, sure, because they're standing there.
Yes,
A minute
exactly.
might feel like
And
an
that's
eternity
why
for
it's
them.
so stressful for them.
Yeah. And I'm not a
I-
fire officer. I can't speak for, the officer aspect.
Yeah, so I still
know.
think though, the MPO and the first two chief are the most stressful because
Sure.
of that very reason of I got to get water, and then the time balance transfer of what's actually happening,
Right.
and you're watching it unfold. And
Sure.
when things start to go sideways, how you react. I've never been there, obviously, but I'm not a chief. But I feel for the chiefs trying to balance that.
Sure.
It's very hard.
Sure.
But I think that, can grit be taught, you said? I don't think it necessarily can be taught, but it can be shown where you could take any person and put them on a nozzle with a good backupman or a good nozzle or a good engine officer and say, you got this, kid, one more room.
Right. And that goes back to what we said earlier as well, as being in a company where you're all in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, as you said that, I'm thinking about being all in, company integrity. This is what separates the engine versus the truck, where the nozzlemen and the MPO, they're connected.
Yeah.
Without him, you don't have him.
Him.
Without him, you don't have him. So
Right.
it goes both ways.
Sure.
So I think that the stress level of an engine ultimately probably is the most stressful job, like you said.
Right.
You know what? You just debunked me. You got me on that one.
Yeah.
At the end, yeah, because I proved myself wrong on that.
Right.
It really is just getting that line of position.
Right. And you know, like young guys too, like, you know, like, you got the nozzle today. Yeah, all right. No, it should be like, shit. Fuck.
Yeah.
All right. You know? Because the responsibility that comes with that position, you know? Like I said, that carries a lot of weight, a lot of stress on that position, you know? And if we're going first due to Chernobyl, cool, man. Hood up, ear flaps down. You know what I mean? That position, there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress in that position.
One of my favorite things operating in a fire is being like a fast truck or extra truck, and you're kind of standing fast by the time you get there, whatever it is. But you see the first two engine walk out, and you see it's a probie on the nozzle, and his front piece is black.
Right.
His snot's hanging down.
Got after it.
And he's shot.
Right.
You know his life will never be the same.
Correct.
Like, you're truly christened, like, not to be cheesy, but you're christened to the fire service. Like, you are now part of the family, 48 engine, or wherever the hell you work. You're part of that family.
And that is just part of stretching and operating that hose line.
Yeah.
That's just a piece of it. You know what I mean? And that's, to be good at that, obviously takes repetitions, but there's so many factors involved to where you're like, yeah, you guys are good. It's very hard. Solely my opinion. It's very hard.
No, I mean, your opinion.
Very hard. My opinion is my opinion. It's coming from a nobody on this job.
What are you talking about, nobody?
I'm a nobody on this job. I'm blessed to work where I work with who I work.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel the way I feel, is that to be good at that, it's very hard. Very hard. You know?
Well, I think you proved your point, because I was pretty firm on the fact, thinking that the MPO and the first two chief are the most stressful, but in reality, what you said is that it's all stressful. It all connects.
It all connects.
It all connects. Like,
right.
As much as the MPO stressed, and let's give the chief, okay, he's delayed. He's stuck in traffic. But that initial company integrity of the engine company, like, yeah, MPO stressed, but so is the control guy.
So is the control guy.
And so is the backup, so is the nozzle, so is the officer, and how we manage that stress, ultimately, which makes professional firefighters. It's not a paycheck, it's how you manage stress.
Right. Fire goes when the first line goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, that comes from your place.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny, because, like, you know, like, you listen to all these podcasts and all the Instagram accounts. And,
sure.
like, obviously Andy is like a disciple of the Lord of firefighting across the nation, across the world at this point.
Sure.
But what you just said comes from a core 48 engine of where this all started for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if anyone takes from these two episodes we just did, like that, like Andy Fredericks, as far as now that he is not on this earth, right? His legacy lives so far beyond, all the way down to you now having this conversation.
Sure.
And you don't even realize where you know where it's coming from, but
sure.
You're just speaking of it.
Right.
And it makes it very real of how powerful he is. Yes, on the global level, but within his company.
Right.
You know, many people forget where he came from because of social media, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
But 48 Engine was his home, where he honed his craft and learned to be an engine company firefighter.
Right.
That's something that we can't forget.
Right. So now, even add to that, working where he created and honed his craft. A little stress, right?
Yeah. Well, you're doing the right thing,
You know what I mean? So you take that one step further, just like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, again, his philosophies, his ways of thinking, just get passed down to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy.
I think that's such a testament of us having this conversation of just that. Mm-hmm. Of like, you know, there's the Book of Andy now going around.
Sure, yeah, that just came out.
Yeah, throughout the fire service, and it's so good and so important. But if anything, I think this is a true testament of like, without a book, and without social media, and without FDIC and all the conferences that he's been such a big part of, which is so phenomenal for the fire service. Mm-hmm. Right here, you were the next generation. A few generations later, after he left that place, mm-hmm. and still alive.
Right.
Because you just debunked me on a debate that we've been having for a couple months now.
I didn't
debate,
debunk
a conversation. But no,
I didn't debunk you.
No, but you made me see the light on the fact that, like, you know what? It's not individualism. You said nozzle, I said NPO, and we connected on the fact that, you know what? It's the engine company.
Right.
The engine company getting that lineman position is the most stressful job you can have, and the most important job that you can master.
Again, strictly my opinion.
No,
you know what I mean?
It is your opinion.
Strictly my opinion.
But it's the right answer. Right?
I feel that way. I feel that way. I feel that way. And, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier, you know, you guys ride on a rolling toolbox. There's tools for every assignment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it comes down to that individual. You know, if you want to be a very good truck guy, you got to get your hands on those tools. You know, you got to know how those tools operates. You know, us, you know, it's
your tool is easy. It's a nozzle, it's a hose, it's some water,
yeah.
And then the pump, obviously.
Right, but it's this. How are we gonna tackle this? How are we gonna, you know, we're in July now, but you know, winter, you know, 1070 is extremely common.
Yeah.
You know, frozen hydrants, you know, extremely common. You know, I mean, this is a beautiful town. I don't know if there's hydrants here, but find me a hydrant in my first and second due area, even third due area that doesn't have a car on it.
Yeah.
How are we gonna tackle that? You know, double parked cars, you know, well hole, no well hole. How, you know, everything is a factor that these 5 guys at that moment in time need to get on the same page. It's very, very, very hard to do.
And I think it starts with the meal. I really believe
well,
that.
hey, listen, like I said, you could be standing in, you know, what's today, Thursday? Sure, Thursday. You know, you could be standing in the grocery store. What do you want to eat today? Sausage and peppers. Okay, cool, you. Hamburgers. Okay, cool, you. Bow tie pasta. Next thing you know, you got 5 different things that 5 guys couldn't come up with at that. You know what I mean? Something as simple as that, you know?
Just to reinforce, I really think that, especially in the engine, in a single engine, if you're working in a single engine, you got to make the meal every tour. It's a drill, man.
Well, yeah.
You're on the same page. You're sizing guys up.
Sure.
He's chopping, and you're looking, and like, something's wrong with him today. He's got the nozzle. What's up, bro?
Right.
I got that going on. All right. But like during that meal, you're sizing guys up.
Sure.
You're fitting in. You're understanding where you fit in when we go out the door. It all comes full circle, and I think that is so important, and it's something that we have to not lose. I don't think our job has lost that.
Right.
Some firehouses maybe, but I think the fire service in general, we just order out too much.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's like a no-no.
That's a detriment. That's the first domino to fall the wrong way in a tour.
Right. Yeah.
Is not prepping a meal.
Right.
And then the second
so
one.
So much happens in the kitchen, man.
Boom, boom, boom. And then you start going down, but it all comes from the kitchen.
Right.
How many times you hear about, the kitchen table, and that's where everything's solved, right?
Mm-hmm.
How true is that? Especially in your place. You solve many problems amongst your kitchen.
Right.
You solve an entire, almost half of a borough in your kitchen by doing the right thing for the men.
Right.
But when we do the wrong thing in the kitchen, that parlays to the fire ground.
Right. And then we obviously a lot of drilling in the kitchen.
No drilling.
You know, and you know, a lot of personal stuff. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, like we're here for each other. You know.
Yeah.
Like I worked the other day. My last 24. The first half I worked with my senior man. He's showing me a video of his kid at a baseball tournament striking this kid out.
Yeah.
And then the second half, I'm working with my other senior man, and he's showing me a video of his kid hitting a grand slam, tying it up. So that happens,
Yeah.
you know, in the kitchen. That's where you get to know each other. So when new guys come in, you get to know them. You get to feel them out, test them, you know, and then someone will talk about something, and then next thing you know, they're drawing something on the board, and then that drill expands and expands and expands, and then
I think it's something that's important for
that's
young
how you get
firefighters. Not
good at
necessarily
it.
probies, but like the 2-year guys who didn't necessarily have the greatest probationary period, right?
Okay.
They fall into kitchen quicksand, where they'll avoid the kitchen at all costs, like it's quicksand.
Yeah,
And they
okay.
walk in, guys will just kind of harrow them a little bit, and they start to sink,
Okay.
and they clam up, and then they leave the kitchen.
Right.
You can't fall suit to kitchen quicksand. You have to be in there, in the game.
Embrace it.
Yeah. Again, if they're not breaking your balls, they don't like you.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
right.
the bottom line, man. When you hire from the kitchen, my place as a firefighter,
Sure.
I'd have to walk through the kitchen to go hang your keys up. I'll tell you right now, man. Sometimes you come in and you would size up that parking lot and you'd be like, oh,
I'll just keep my keys in my
God,
pocket.
yeah.
In my pocket.
the last place I want to go. And it was like a firing squad. It was like,
Right,
bop, bop,
yeah,
bop,
yeah.
bop. And you leave it there in tears sometimes. You know, like,
Sure.
fuck.
Sure.
But that means they loved you. They were
Right.
happy you were there.
Right.
If you walked in, there was silence. No, you know what? You better reevaluate your career at that point because
Right.
something's wrong,
Right. Yeah.
right? And that's something we have to, because of the outside administration and the politics and the civilians being involved with the internal side, they don't know what goes on behind those big red doors, and we have to keep that they don't know what's going on behind the red doors, but also don't let that influence of what really happens. Just embrace it because
Sure.
it's been going on for 150 years,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So. I
Absolutely.
don't know. But thank you for bringing that up. I mean, for reminding us of what we originally wanted to talk about, which we didn't do in the last episode, but I'm glad we hit it, and I'm glad that we came into an agreement on it because we had a couple conversations over
Yeah,
it,
we
and it
were
makes
going back
total
and forth
sense.
with it. We were going
I
back
was
and forth
thinking
with
two
it.
positions, and you were thinking the overall company, and that just shows your mindset
Right.
that you're a fucking diehard engine company
Yeah.
guy, like diehard engine company guy, and that's what it's about.
Right.
So, again,
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate
that's
it.
it, man.
Thank you.
All right.